Hello, hello, hello. Welcome in Fantasy Life right here with you for the next couple of hours. Kendall, Valenzuela, Adam, Ronis, and we've got a ton to talk about today. Adam, Jacory, Corskey-Merritt truthers, please stand up. Yell it, stand on the mountaintops, yell it from the back. We need to hear you. How you doing? That was a fun game last night.
Yeah, doing well. It definitely was fun early on, even though we didn't get to see Jaden Daniels that long. I think they were like, okay, you're
I
taking
think they
some
were
hits
mad at
there.
him. I
Yeah,
think I think
on that
I think
touchdown
Dan
run.
Quinn came out and said that he was mad.
Yeah, you don't want to see your
So good.
quarterback get crushed in the preseason, but he was fine. The Bengals defense is awful, which
Yeah,
we already
as
knew,
we
and that's
expected.
great for fantasy. That means
Absolutely.
the Bengals are going to have to put up a ton of points, so we love that for fantasy.
I think I was reading this morning. It was their first, the Bengals. So the Bengals won their preseason game last night. Unfortunately, we're not talking about, games that we care all too much about yet, but we are very close. But they did win last night 31-17. And the reason we're talking about this game is probably more to talk about Jacory Croskey-Merritt. But for the Commanders, there's a lot going on. But this was the first preseason win for the Bengals since 2022. So maybe that means they're going to snap the streak. So the reason we saw some of them too was that they are really trying to get off to better starts. That's the thing. There is always around the Bengals this idea that they cannot win their first 2 to 3 games. I think that's where we put it. They're just always they're always the team that doesn't help you when you're trying when you're trying to win your survivor pools. You might want to still stay away from them, but it was their first preseason win since 2022. So, congrats. Good start.
Yeah, let's hope that translates
Let's
into the
hope.
regular season, at least for fantasy purposes.
Well, we're gonna find out. If you had to put, so they play the Browns, who we're gonna talk about here. If you had to, right? Would you take the Bengals in that game? If someone says you win $1 million,
Oh,
are
for
you
just to
taking?
pick them to win straight up?
Yep.
I think I would, yeah.
Okay. All
I
right.
know it's
Ten
risky.
dollars.
It's still the Browns.
It is still the Browns, but
It is on
you
the
never
road,
know.
though. It is on the
Exactly.
road.
You never know. Should we get into the Jacory Croskey-Merritt? I don't know about your mentions. My mentions were awesome. It was so fun to see everyone just kind of get hyped about Jacory Croskey-Merritt, but it's interesting right now, Adam, because we got news yesterday or over the weekend, I want to say, I can't remember really, that Brian Robinson Jr., the team is looking to shop him, and that was per Jordan Schultz. Now we have a situation, Adam, where we watch a preseason game last night where Jacory Croskey-Merritt, who, by the way, goes by Bill. Did you know that?
Yes, I did.
Okay. All right. I'm not going to say Bill on the radio. If we meet him, he's going to become a fan of the show. I'll call him Bill. But for everyone listening, so they don't get confused of like, who the heck are they talking about? Who's Bill? Jacory Croskey-Merritt goes by Bill. So if you see some of the fun stuff written about him today, and you see the name Bill, that's what's going on there. But he had 46 of their 185 rushing yards yesterday. He had the 27-yard touchdown, and he kind of validated all the praise that he's receiving. Are we in though? Are we in on Jacory Croskey-Merritt? Because there's just still this situation, Adam, where we're thinking that Brian Robinson Jr. is going to get moved, but what if he doesn't before the trade deadline? What if he stays on this team for a few more weeks before a team decides that they want to go get him? I mean, how are you actually looking at Jacory Croskey-Merritt in drafts right now?
I mean, I am interested. I have been taking him, and now I don't know if I will be able to because we know that the price is going up, and I'm very interested to see. I think I did see in a high stakes leagues draft. I think it was yesterday. He went round 8. I mentioned in my Beat Adam Ronis league last week or 2 weeks ago. I can't forget now. I think it was last
Whatever.
Monday, or the week before. But he went first pick around 8, and that was before all this buzz. And I was like, what? So apparently that looks like the new market, or if not higher, because it does look like Brian Robinson is not going to be there. He wasn't even at the stadium.
No, he didn't
So
even show up. Same with
yeah.
Terry McLaurin.
So you still do have, Chris Rodriguez there who started, and Austin Eckler who's going to be the pass catching back. But we've heard nothing but positive things from Croskey-Merritt all preseason. So that's why he was kind of on my radar. And just looking at that backfield, again, when I was taking him like 18th round
Hmm.
back in July in those 20-round drafts, didn't think it would get to this level, but now he is just rising. I've had him higher in my ranks than ADP, so if people have been using my rankings, they probably have him. But now it's going to be difficult because the price is going way up. And it also never feels good when you're taking a guy in round 13, 14, 15, and now his price goes up to round 8. You feel like you're getting robbed a little bit,
Yeah.
right? And you're also competing with other teams that got him at a bargain. So, but we know how hype builds, and it was all over last night. It was an isolated national TV game.
Yeah, it's the worst
Everyone's
kind.
talking about it. I even tweeted Corskey-Merritt first round pick, because
Why not?
that's all everyone's talking about. So, yeah, I'm very interested to see where he goes the next couple days. And I will tell you this, there probably will be someone in every draft who wants to be that guy to say, hey, I had Corskey-Merritt, and they take him a little bit earlier. And like I said, that's the one thing I hate about the preseason. And this goes for any sport. When you have players that you like drafting at a value, if they have a good preseason, this is what happens, unfortunately. And then you kind of get priced out and you have to move on to the next value.
Yeah, it's gonna be I think we're on the clock, by the way, right now on CBS.
Again, no, I made the
CBS
pick
League.
this morning.
Oh, did you? Who'd we
Yeah,
play?
we agreed on it last night.
Oh, was that I know, but I thought I got a notification this morning. Maybe I'm
Yeah, it was this
it
morning. I
was
made
it
the
was
pick.
5:15 in the morning, so I was a little
Yeah,
bit tired.
I made the
Okay.
pick. It was
Thank
a
you.
Trey McBride.
Oh, heck yeah. Look at our team. Who do we have now? Just to
Yeah,
update
so
people?
this is a charity league for St. Jude, CBS, and Kendall and I are splitting a team against listeners or people who follow us or,
I think
I don't
both.
know, discovered us somehow. We have
Yeah.
picked 3, and we started with Bijan Robinson, came back with A.J. Brown, and then Trey McBride in round 3.
Ugh, I love it already.
Because,
Winners.
again, the
I can already
format,
tell.
too, it's 2 running backs, 2 receivers, 1 flex, a tight end, a quarterback. So it's a small starting lineup and a small bench. No kickers, no defense. So that's why we decided to go with Trey
I
McBride in
like it.
round 3.
Next pick we can do Jacory, Corskey-Merritt.
Yeah, let's do it.
Little fourth round. Why not?
Someone's
Let's just keep
listening. They're
the
going to snipe us. What are you doing?
let's just keep the good vibes going. But listen, I mean, Jacory Krosky-Merritt feels like someone we're now going to talk about for the next couple of weeks here. He wasn't, when we talk about their first preseason game, he wasn't used on third downs. He wasn't even that he wasn't used like that in New Mexico as well. So it seems very likely that if we're trying to project a role here, Adam, it's the early down back. And if they continue to keep, again, we don't really know. Again, Brian Robinson Jr., we do not know what's going to happen there. Like, this is a player that could still be on the team. Is it more likely now than ever that probably he won't? Sure, but we just never know what's going to happen with the NFL here, Adam, because he did not show up to the game yesterday. Feels like it's mutual between the coaching staff and him that they're just trying to find a different place to put him. But when we're trying to project a role for Jacory Krosky-Merritt, we were already saying that, he would be the handcuff to Robinson Jr., and now he would probably step into that role. And again, targets. This is also the other interesting part with the targets for the running backs because they do have Debo Samuel now. So I think a good amount of targets are going to go to him as well. But they are, he was already playing ahead of friend of the show, McNichols. He was playing ahead of Rodriguez. So that is definitely the guy to go and get. With the other side here, Adam, with Brian Robinson Jr., are you just stopping altogether drafting him if you have been drafting him? Again, for me, I look at the range and I've taken him only a handful of times, and it's been when I've needed, some extra guys at running back where I've gone 0 RB and I've just wanted to make sure to stack my team towards the middle back half of the draft. But are you now, waiting? Are we seeing if he could land in a place that could be fantasy relevant? What are you thinking about with him?
If I'm drafting right now, I'm not drafting him. I wasn't anyway to begin with, but we don't know exactly what's going on, so I'm just going to pass.
Could he land somewhere where we care? Realistically, I mean, if he did, let's say it's Chicago. I mean, would we start to care there or I'm trying to think of another team that we would care more
Houston,
about. Houston? I mean,
maybe.
Houston would be interesting
Yeah.
because we're already not drafting some of those. We're not drafting Nick Chubb, Woody Marks. I know that people are still talking about, what that team could do with Joe Mixon, but I'm kind of out as a whole on that whole backfield. Is there a team or a situation where you think we would talk about him more in the next couple of weeks?
Probably not. I
Okay.
mean, it
You hate
looked
him.
like Washington was probably the best situation for him, right? He was getting goal
Yeah,
line
probably.
carries at least. So, yeah, it's not ideal if you already drafted him. That's the unfortunate part sometimes of drafting early. We talk about a lot of the value. I think there's more positives than negatives drafting early because there's a lot of players, if you go back and look at your boards from June and July, players that have absolutely skyrocketed that you probably got great value on. And yeah, there's going to be the injuries and situations like this, but more often than not, I think it pays to draft a little bit earlier before you get the
Yeah.
hype on some of these players.
Yep, I agree. And again, you were talking about the Bengals here just to finish off this game. It does look like the Bengals defense is going to be bad again, which is good for us in fantasy football. So that's I'm sorry, Bengals fans, it just is. Commanders were averaging 7.7 yards per carry against the starters. Adam, so that's not good. Shout out to by the way, who was the other? It was Mitch Tinsley. Looks like he's going to make that team too. He had a great touchdown grab last night. 25-year-old receiver. Looks like he's going to
Yeah.
make that team. That was fun
Mm.
to watch too. Not to say that we're going out of our way to draft him, but it's always fun to see, these guys are out there playing for a job at some point. So if worst case scenario happens with some of these teams, we will end up talking about them by October, November, which again we don't want. But he was pretty impressive in that one too. So we'll see what happens with Brian Robinson Jr. and Bill Jacory Corskey-Merritt. Lock him up. I think you should set him up in our queue. See if we forget to pick, and we could just take him in
Oh,
the
I
fourth
am
round.
pretty sure he's buried at
Uh,
CBS, so
oh,
I'm
let me
pretty sure
check.
he's buried.
What's your guess? I'm gonna go to the Fantasy Life ADP tool, but what is your
Oh,
guess?
on C, I'm gonna say 142.
Okay, that's not bad. I'm gonna look
Well,
here.
I probably just moved up recently. That's why.
Oh yeah, fair. So he's CBS 150. Oh,
Okay.
you were really close. It's like you're a
Yeah.
professional or something. It's crazy. Justin Jefferson. We're going through the news. We're at the top of the hour. Kendall Valenzuela, Adam Ronis with you right here again. All the tools that we talk about today, fantasylife.com. That's where you can go. SXM20 gets you 20% off any Fantasy Life Plus Tier 1 or Tier 2 subscription. J. Jeff was back. This is good news. I mean, we've been talking so far about bad injury news, but Justin Jefferson did return to the Vikings for the first time. 25 days he was out. I didn't think it was that long, Adam, but again, this wasn't a situation. I got a couple tags yesterday at K Valenzuela 17 at Adam Ronis. If you guys want to send us any messages, screenshots of your team, didn't move him down because of this. I think it was always going to be something where we know Justin Jefferson. We don't want to move him too much, but yeah, he last practiced on the second day of training camp, so it looks like he's going to be back this week, which is good news for him and for JJ McCarthy.
Yeah, I was never worried about this because it was so early. It was like late July, so there was plenty of time for him to get ready. I don't think most people panicked. You did see him drop a little bit. Sometimes he would go 5, 6, 7. Maybe now this positive news for those that were reacting, maybe it pushes him back up just a little bit. But he's either the second or third receiver off the board. Some people have CD Lamb ahead of him. Others have Jefferson too, behind Jamar Chase. But either way, there
Yeah.
should have never been any major worry with this just because it happened so early in camp and there was plenty of time for him to get ready. And it makes
That's
sense from a
yeah.
Minnesota standpoint. There's no need to push him. Just make sure that he is completely healthy before he returns to the field.
Yeah, and it's one of those things like you said, we'd rather have if we're going to talk injuries, we'd rather them be July or really we're getting to a point where it's like right now to hope that they're able to go for week 1. But again, he's back in practice. I think I moved CeeDee Lamb ahead of him. That was the only move I made to once we got this news 25 days out of practice. So just move CeeDee Lamb ahead and you guys can all go check out those rankings at fantasylife.com. Let's go to Achane here since we're going through all the news. We mentioned that there was a what was it lower body injury. We didn't have many specific answers there. Mike McDaniel did come out and say that Devon Achane is unlikely to practice this week, and it turns out it is a calf injury. So it's important for me to say that McDaniel did tell reporters that the idea to keep Achane out of practice this week was more preventative. The quote was preventative in nature. So it kind of is trying to downplay the severity of this injury. It seems like they're thinking it's not a big deal. They just want to make sure that he's rested and ready to go. But again, there was reports last week that he had the soft tissue lower body injury, and we figured out now it's a calf. And I think the way I want to frame this conversation, Adam, because I've seen a ton of questions around it, but it's between the backup running back here. Like if we believe that it's going to be Jaylen Wright, if you're trying to handcuff him, if you draft him, or if you're just trying to get that late round running back that could climb up depth charts that we always talk about. Jaylen Wright, to me, I thought was the guy to go and get. But now, reading more and more stuff, especially after this preseason, should Ollie Gordon be in our sights here for the Dolphins as well?
It's probably Jalen Wright right now. I think it's still him. I know it's been a rough preseason, but he's been in earlier in the game. Gordon more late in the game, so you can maybe take Gordon in the final rounds for sure. But it sounds like Achane's going to be okay. But it is a concern if you're drafting now
Yeah.
in your early second round because you don't want to have too much risk already going into the season with those picks. But at the same time, you know how explosive Achane is and the numbers he can put up, especially in the passing game. I mean, what
Yeah.
he brings, uh, leading, running backs and receptions last year and should play that role again. So that is a tough call what to do with Achane right now. I won't have to deal with it this
Yeah,
weekend.
I
You
will.
will.
It's fine. Thanks.
You're not
Appreciate
going to
it.
take him. I know you already. You're not
No,
going to
I
take him in 12.
what's our obviously I've looked at our league rules. Are we full PPR?
Yes.
I think that makes a difference though when we're talking about Achan and some of these other running backs. This is a smoke screen, Adam, to make sure that if people are listening and they're picking, 11, 12, 13 in front of me, maybe I'm going to talk them into it because I know what's going to happen. It's going to be Puka Nakua and it's going to be Devon Achan. And I'm going to sit there and I'm going to call you and I'm going to be pissed and then I'm going to make a decision. But I've drafted him a couple times already because of, me not being able to get out of the 10 plus range in drafts. But I think the important part though, and you and I always talk about it is getting those handcuffs and getting them right. I mean, it's one thing to draft their handcuff. It's another thing, whether it be injuries like we saw last season with the 49ers, which we just could not control. You probably drafted the right backup, but it was one of those things where everyone was getting hurt. We've heard a little bit of rumblings that maybe this backup role is still kind of wide open with Ollie Gordon there, but I'm with you. I've been drafting Jaylen right like he was going to be the one for one handcuff to Achane. Again, we're trying not to overreact, right, Adam? But any lower body, any soft tissue injury, any calf injury that we hear about right now for a guy like Achane with his workload that we're expecting him to have in 2025, you just got to draft the right one. And I still think that it's Jaylen Wright. If you drafted Achane and you were looking to get the backup or the handcuff, I would go with him still.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's him. I still have him higher in the rankings as well.
Yeah, I do too. It's always the worst though when you draft the wrong one. When we think we know what's going on, and then all of a sudden we're like, well, just kidding. They decided to go with Ollie Gordon, but that's not going to happen. And if it does, we'll make sure you guys know.
That's always the challenging part too, because a lot of people will say, "Well, make sure you get the handcuff for your starting running back." A lot of times we don't even know, right? Like there's some that
Exactly.
are clear cut, others that we're just not sure. So that's why you just can't handcuff every running back. There's some that's obvious, but there's a lot that's up for grabs.
Yeah, I agree. I got tagged in a post yesterday that someone had accidentally taken Trevor Etienne instead of Travis Etienne because of the T's with the Etienne at the end. You see that?
Well, yeah, and did you see
It's
the one that's
tough.
going viral with the number
No.
one pick where the guy put the sticker on the board and he thought it was Bijan Robinson and it was Brian Robinson and they were all laughing. You
No.
haven't seen this?
Oh, no, I haven't seen that one, and I'm chronically
It's all
online.
over.
Dang
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I mean,
Could
come
you
on.
imagine? If you were a
Like,
commissioner,
so if he places the sticker on the board, what would I do if I was commissioner? That's
you
a
would
good
let
call.
him change it because people don't. I mean, they're obviously drafting on ESPN or Yahoo. You can
But,
pause the league.
but they were doing it in person and he put the sticker on the board. So he took the
But if
sticker.
but
He
some of
can't.
those stickers just have the first initial. It's just like ETN. Trevor and Travis ETN.
No, I believe this
You
one had
think
the
they
full
have
name.
names?
I'd have to
Oh,
zoom in on it. But
okay.
yeah,
If
the
they had
ones.
full names, then you
So
would
you
let him change it. I would let him change
I
it.
think you need to make that a rule beforehand. Like you announce, hey guys, you're responsible for putting up your sticker. If you put up the wrong one and you place the sticker on the board, that's the pick. I mean, if you say that clearly, then I think you stick with it. But yeah, you
You would let
probably,
him change it. You're
yeah,
nice.
I guess so.
You try to put up this front, but you would let him change it. That would be an
See, in the
awful way to
GST,
start.
GST, I think there was one year we did have everyone put up stickers, or I think we designated a person per round. Like I couldn't do
Mhm.
it as commissioner because I'm inputting the picks. So everyone else at the table would take turns, maybe one round putting up the stickers, something like that. But,
Yeah.
or I guess you could ask everyone to go up there and put up a sticker. But people usually announce the player and then the stickers put up.
Exactly.
But I think as long as it's clear cut, if you say as commissioner, hey guys, you're responsible if you put up the wrong sticker, that's your pick. Once you place that sticker on the board, that's your pick. That would be crazy
That
too.
would be so
You
awful.
know how
I guess
demoralized you would be the rest of the draft if you had Brian Robinson #1 and you couldn't change it? Like you would be checked out. You might leave. That's
maybe
why you collect the money first.
yeah,
Because
you could leave.
if I got the money and he's in the draft and he says I'm out, I'm not playing anymore. I'm like, all right, cool. Well, you ain't getting your money
See you
back.
later. Maybe he knows something that we don't. Maybe it is Brian Robinson season. No, I can't even say it with a straight face. It's
No,
it's just not. I guess the biggest takeaway from the show today, we're gonna give you the best draft advice that we absolutely can. Read the stickers. If you're putting up stickers on your draft board, make sure. I really think some of them though just have the first initial and then the picture of the player. Sometimes we'll have to look into this.
really,
It'll be
I've
fun.
I've never seen that, but
Let me
maybe it's
look. Let
possible.
me look back at my draft. I did the one in Vegas at Circa. I'll look back and see what those stickers looked like. Anyway, read the stickers before you put them on, folks. That's the biggest that's the biggest takeaway of the show today. We're gonna keep going here though. Like I said, we're gonna be talking with Paul Charchi, and he's got great guillotine league advice for us. But before we do that, we're going through breakout wide receivers, a really important conversation of guys that we actually think could break out, could pay off their ADP as well. We're gonna give you those names coming up next. JSN. Adam, what do you think about JSN going into his third year? Because last season when we were looking at him, he obviously had a great, I mean, that's kind of why it's hard to say breakout, but what do you think his expectations should be this season? It's a little different for the Seahawks going into it this year. You've got not only Sam Darnold, you hopefully have a little bit of a better offensive line. DK Metcalf is out of there, Cooper Kupp is in. Marquez Valdez Scantling is there. Torrey Horton is there. But what are your expectations for him and, where his price is right now? Because I mean, he's not a cheap pick in drafts. And so when you're looking for those wide receivers, especially in, some leagues, some formats that really push the wide receivers up the board, it's important to get the ones that you hope are going to pay off their ADP. So what are your expectations for him?
Yeah, he's in a range of those wide receivers where I really don't like a lot of them. I've talked about a lot that late second, early third round where you feel like you're kind of taking these guys higher than they should go. So Smith and Jigba last year I was very high on because the price was really appealing and it turned out very well. This year, I guess the biggest concern is the change in offense and they're going to be more run heavy. But still, when they throw the ball, you got to figure he's going to get most of the targets. He had 137 last year, had 100 receptions, 1,130 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Uh, with DK Metcalf gone, that opens it up for him. You got Cooper Kupp, as you mentioned there. But I think Smith and Jigba, whether he's sometimes in the slot, sometimes on the outside, can still win. And it comes down to when they do throw, you got to figure he's going to get a lot of the targets. So he hasn't been someone that I'm actively pursuing in drafts. I think if he falls to the right spot, I'm open to taking him. But that range of wide receivers, like I really feel when I'm looking at rankings like 13 to 19, I'm really not enthralled with any of those receivers. And
No.
it's like I kind of want to put the guys below above, but they go around later. So I do feel like that period of wide receivers every time I'm ranking them, I'm like, I have this guy too high, but it's like, okay, where am I putting him? But it is a range where I feel like I don't love any of them. And, because Smith and Jigba, he's usually in that range. He's anywhere from
He
like what,
is.
13 to 20? He's in that range. And uh, yeah, it's just not a range that I like.
No, well, you said it. It's a range with question marks where there's a lot of outs where we could say, oh, this is, it's going to be great with, I don't Tyreek Hill. It's going to be great for T. Higgins. He's going to stay healthy a full season. Marvin Harrison Jr., Kyler Murray has to be better this season and their chemistry has to be good, right? And then
Garrett
JSN,
Wilson in that
Garrett
range
Wilson,
too.
Devontae Adams now. I mean, I know
Yeah,
Matthew
like
Stafford
I
was back at
really
practice,
don't love
but
any of those guys. Like you don't there's no way you click the button on draft on those guys and feel good. I actually am fine with T. Higgins though. I will say that. I understand
okay.
he's the number 2 and you have Jamar Chase, but if you just look at a per game basis last year, he was a top 5 receiver in points per game. Now he does miss time a lot and he's had hamstring issues. So I understand that, but that offense they're going to put up points, as we mentioned, with how bad the defense is. But after that, there's just a lot of those question marks. So, and I feel way better about like many of the receivers in the 20 to 30 range. I think some of those guys are better. Maybe I just need to move them up and say,
Maybe
you
you
know
should
what, who
move him up
cares?
then. So like so starting with Mike Evans, DJ Moore, Jameson Williams, George Pickens, is that the range for you?
Yeah, Pickens.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of those guys.
Tetairoa McMillan, Xavier
Yeah. Oh,
Worthy.
actually, I
Yeah.
have Ted. See, I have him higher, and I know Fantasy Life does too, because I've been doing
Oh
these
yeah.
articles. So Tetairoa McMillan on those sites, he is so cheap compared to where we rank him. It's
Hmm.
insane. I just did the article about the sleeper values. You could check that out on fantasylife.com. Promo code SXM20,
Nice.
20% off.
Look at
And I'm
you.
doing one that should be out tomorrow. I'm almost finished with it on ESPN. Now, ESPN, and I know it's funny because you put that that we're going to talk about that
Yeah,
today.
yeah.
I could write 20,000 words on ESPN and the values there. Unfortunately, we don't want to make you read that much, so it'll be a little shorter than that. But there are so many values, and McMillan's another one on there where the gap is so wide.
Yeah, at ESPN, I've got one draft, no, two. I've got two drafts on there this year, and
Damn, you're
I'm
lucky. I have none.
well, you want to join?
I
I
don't know.
think
I might
I
have
think you
to.
might. I think you might want to, but it's one of those things where that's why we're gonna mention it today. It is. I forgot that you were writing it, and I thought it was coming out today, but I still have values that I've seen on ESPN where compared to our ADP and our ranks, it's way different. So that's why we're gonna talk about that here in a second, but. Yeah, with JSN again, there's question marks. I've been comfortable taking him. Again, I don't have a lot of him because of where I've been drafting this season, Adam. And so hopefully at some point I can get I hope I am just having to have this conversation with myself at one point where I have pick 5, pick 4, and I can say, "Ah, do I really want Jackson Smith and Jigba here? Do I want Marvin Harrison?" But it hasn't happened for me yet, but I know it I absolutely know it will, hopefully this season. Marvin Harrison Jr., speaking of, when we're in this range, I mean, of guys that we say, hey, is there a potential breakout here? Marvin Harrison Jr., you know where I stood last season, and he was someone I took a good amount of with Kyler Murray. It was obviously it was just a bad season. It was a bad season. It was a bad pick. And it's one thing that just kind of kept your team down a little bit. He averaged 11.7 points per game. He was barely sneaking in a wide receiver 3 finish. And that was, again, a round 2 draft pick that you took when he was a rookie. So it was unfortunate. We go to some of the underlying data. He did flash some of those wide receiver 2 level talents with the targets, with the air yards, with the PFF receiving grade as well. Felt like a chemistry thing last season, and hopefully it's better this year. But do you think that Marvin Harrison Jr. with his price in the second round, because again you're paying, or third round, excuse me, in most, you're paying for him. What are your expectations for him?
This is one I'm torn on because I want to say yes, I believe, but I find myself not clicking the button when he's
Okay.
there. You're hearing reports that the chemistry is getting better. That's cool. Want to see it on the field. I think they need to do a better job of just getting him easier catches, slants over the middle, get the ball in his hands. You know, there were too many times that they were trying to go deep, not high percentage throws, and it wasn't working. So I just think they need to do a better job of getting the ball in, more ideal situations in
Mhm.
space so Harrison could just get going after the catch. But they have to change it because it was not working last year. The efficiency of the offense was brutal. It was a really tough watch when you were watching the
It was.
Cardinals last year. It was painful at times. Some would say like watching the Mets over the last 2 months, very painful. But there's certainly potential for Harrison. We saw some big games last year as well. So I want to say that it can get better, but I'm not fully convinced. I always say you're measured by what you do when you're on the clock, and I just haven't been able to click the button yet.
That's more telling than anything else. I change my rankings based on that. I'll be in an underdog draft, Adam, and I'll say, okay, here's one where I'm like, oh, okay, do I really want this player, or am I going to go? I think someone asked me yesterday. It was like Calvin Ridley, George Pickens, and I was like, oh, Pickens for sure in this situation. And I was like, let me make sure with my ranks. So you always have to go back when you're putting pressure on. But I I also haven't taken Marvin Harrison Jr. and it feels bad. I
I
just
have to look though to see is it because I've not been in a range to draft him?
Well,
I
he's
think that's
usually in the
part of it.
middle, right?
Yeah,
He's usually going in the middle of the third round. So I see him usually going after Trey McBride, T. Higgins, Omarion Hampton sometimes has jumped him, Kyron Williams, and then maybe two quarterbacks depending on where you're drafting. But I've seen him in the middle. It's never on one end or the other.
I think that's probably like I said. I've been picking like top 5 in every draft, so the thing is, if I don't take him on that 2-3 turn, he's gone. And I think that's a
Exactly.
little bit, don't you think that's a little early for him?
I do. I do. If it's the end of the third round, that's where I'll consider again because that's the only place that I get to pick this season. That's why probably you're right that I haven't taken much of him except on Underdog, and Underdog's a lot different of a platform where again, when you draft on Underdog, you don't have to set your lineups. They just give you the best score total at the end of every single week. But I agree with you on the other part too that you said where I just would like this team to be a little bit more creative. Like Drew Petzing, the personnel from a personnel standpoint, they're basically almost going to look the same as last season, which can be good on one hand, but the creativity from Petzing and giving Harrison like some of those easy wins, like you had just mentioned, that would be phenomenal. And it feels like what he needs. But the only target competition here really is Trey McBride. This has a chance to be a really consolidated offense. So I can see where people go back and say, okay, if Marvin Harrison Jr., if Kyler Murray, especially Kyler Murray, feels way more closer to 100% than he did last season, there is an out for this to be okay. We've got the floor, median, ceiling projections for him. The ceiling is wide receiver one, of course, worthy 18.1 projected potential fantasy points per game. The median, though, it's a huge drop, Adam. It's not one of these things where we say, oh, okay, well his ceiling is good. We would take the median though because it drops him to a borderline wide receiver two, wide receiver three kind of guy with 13.4 fantasy points per game. And then the floor is 10.4, which is wide receiver four. And if we get the median or the floor this season and you're still taking him in the third round, it's not going to be fun to have to figure out what to do with them.
Yeah, I also thought if you would have asked me like June, May, June, I would have thought Harrison would go fourth round, maybe fifth round. But I
He was
guess
always
people,
expensive.
yeah, he is very expensive. That's you really need him to come through. If he has another year like last year, that's going to just really cripple your fantasy team. So I know he had 8 touchdowns, but let's be honest, okay? It was not a good fantasy season,
No.
especially since a lot of people took him late first, early second round. So when you're looking at expectations for where he was drafted, he certainly didn't live up to it. And there was just a lot of inconsistency. There were like, yeah, that one huge game against the Rams where I think he had 2 touchdowns in the first quarter. Even in that game, he quieted down after that.
Yeah, it was one of those situations where the you could look at the fantasy finish, kind of how we talked about Kyler Murray. But if you didn't manage Kyler Murray last season, you don't really realize how bad it is because you could say, oh, he finished overall as the QB 12. It's like yes, but week in and week out, he wasn't giving you consistent fantasy points, and it's the same. It would be the same thing with Marvin Harrison because, like you said, I'm going. This is ESPN scoring, but 29 points in week two, 17.4, 15.5. We're feeling good at him. I knew it in GST. I was like, I'm amazing. Look at this pick that I took on the 1-2 turn. And then you'd get 5.6. He wasn't, I might have been hurt, but he wasn't targeted in Green Bay. 5.1, 3.4. It was just up and down. So you're really just hoping for more consistency, not only from Kyler Murray, but from Marvin Harrison Jr. And like you said, maybe just some easier looks. Because we're going to expect Trey McBride to have positive touchdown regression as well. So it's consolidated. It's all right there. But third round might be tough.
Yeah, again, they just have to be more creative with their designs in their plays because it was a lot of vertical throws and
Mhm.
it just wasn't there. So that's something that you want to see early in the season that they find a way to get the ball in his hands in a more smoother fashion because it was tough last year.
It was tough and it was a tough watch sometimes too. Let's go through those ESPN values. I want to talk if you're drafting on ESPN, this is going to be really important to talk about because we've got some values based on our rankings compared to ESPN ADPs, and I want to talk through just some good ways that you can draft on ESPN. We're going to do that here coming up next. We are right here, Fantasy Life, getting you ready for all of those drafts. Seeing all of your questions over there on X at Valenzuela 17 at Adam Ronis. Make sure you send us any questions, comments, concerns that you have. I saw one from Tony here. Bill, Jacory Corskey-Merritt, by the way, who is referred to as Bill, who likes to be called Bill, went in the ninth round in our in our in-person draft last night. To me, I was the one who caught on with the hype and the B-Rob news. That's why we're here, though, Adam. You got to know this. If you're drafting today, tomorrow, doesn't matter. We've got news that always will impact your drafts and how you should look at them going forward. So, congratulations, ninth round. That's pretty nice. That's about where it's going to start going, Adam. No more Jacory Krosky Merritt in the, where'd you get him? 14th round, 15th, 22nd?
Uh, So yeah, I think I was looking back. I think a DraftKings best ball round 16. I think the Scott Fish Bowl was round 17 or
Yeah.
18. So yeah, those days are
It's
long,
over.
long gone.
You can look at them in a, you could frame it. You could frame that picture of where you got them and just put them in a frame and just say, ah, I remember the days. Speaking of news though, that you do need to know before going into your drafts, just a little update here before we get into these ESPN value picks. But it looks like Buccaneers head coach Todd Bowles says that Jalen McMillan has a severely sprained neck, will miss some time, and will not be ready for the season opener. We've talked about Jalen McMillan this offseason. Obviously, it's been a lot more hype towards Emeka Egbuka, but he has been one where we've said, okay, if Chris Godwin isn't good to go, obviously Emeka Egbuka is the one that we're saying is just a value pick, depending on where he goes in your drafts. But Jalen McMillan was always someone we still made sure to talk about because when we talk about next guy up, we saw him last season. And if you were able to keep him long enough and be patient with him, he was definitely someone that we were okay with drafting. So this is unfortunate news for them. But again, Meke Ibuka is just going to, yeah, we also don't get a discount on a Meke Ibuka. Let's just say that.
No, we don't. No, fortunately, did able to get him in a lot of drafts early, but I don't know how many more I will be able to get. But yeah, this is brutal for McMillan. You could see it, like he landed on his neck. That did
It was,
not look
yeah, it did not
good.
look good.
And they are
Thank
saying,
goodness he's okay.
yeah, they are saying severe. So yeah, probably at this point, I don't think you should draft
I
him.
would stay away.
Yeah. Now maybe if you have an IR spot, but the thing is too, really the appeal of him was if Chris Godwin were to miss the start of the season, he would get an opportunity. They do run a lot of three wide sets, but if he's going to be out, so all of a sudden, that receiving core that were like, oh yeah, it's really deep. I mean, it's Egbuka and Mike Evans to start. They're going to see
Yeah.
a lot of targets there. Obviously, the running backs, and again, we'll have to wait and see with Chris Godwin. I think the last thing I saw was like as of a few days ago that he wasn't even jogging yet, like on the
Oof.
side. So yeah, the Godwin situation doesn't appear to be great either. So yeah, a lot of targets for Mike Evans and Emeka Egbuka early on.
It's not good. And that was, you said it, that was the thing with Jalen McMillan, where we were saying, okay, just in case, something does happen. NFL teams, I'm looking this up just to make sure because I want to get my dates right. NFL teams have until 4 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday, August 26th, Adam. Tuesday, August 26th to reduce their active roster to 53 players ahead of the 2025 season. So the cut to 53 that is the reduction deadline in the NFL during the preseason. And so that's when hopefully we get more clarity, right? Because if they're not on that 53-man roster right away, that means that they are going to start the year on pup, right? And miss the first 4 games, is how I look at it. So Jalen McMillan, if you're drafting after that, and like you said, you have an IR spot, and we hear that Chris Godwin, potentially is missing the first 4 games, then I think it's okay to draft him. Again, that's an IR spot though, Adam. If you don't have one of those, yeah, it's going to be a little bit more difficult because a severe neck injury is not where you want to start. We really don't. Again, we just got this news, so we don't know what that timeline could look like. But it is Chris Godwin, or sorry, Mike Evans' season, and Emeka Egbuka. We've got more breaking news, Adam, because the NFL never stops. We've got breaking news on who the starting quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts is going to be for 2025. I know. If you could see Adam's face right now, he just figured it out too, but we can't tell you yet. You have to wait around with us. So we're going to give you that information, tell you who the starting I'm sorry, who the starting quarterback for the Colts is going to be coming up next. We've got breaking news for the Indianapolis Colts that we have to break down right here on Fantasy Life, Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. The Colts are naming Daniel Jones. Adam, Daniel Jones as their starting quarterback for the 2025 season per Tom Pelissero after a training camp competition with Anthony Richardson. Jones, who was the former, obviously, Giants starter, gets the week 1 start going up against Miami. I am surprised that this is the way that they're going because you and I have talked about it before with Anthony Richardson. He is still just 23 years old. And when we look at where they drafted him, 3rd overall, you would expect him potentially to get the starting job just to see what they have in him because he has been injured. He didn't play much at all in college as well. But maybe, Adam, this is a situation where we're looking and this coaching staff is coaching for their jobs. And they believe that Daniel Jones will get them more wins at the end of the day and give this team a better chance to succeed. What are your thoughts here? Again, it's going to be Daniel Jones week 1 for the Colts. What do you think?
Definitely surprised by this. I thought that it could be Daniel Jones earlier in the offseason, but as the summer went on, and it's unlike Richardson completely outplayed Jones in the preseason, but Jones really didn't do anything
Yeah.
to take command of this job. So I figured if it was going to be that close, you got a young quarterback in Richardson who you drafted early, top 5, and we knew coming out of college he didn't have a lot of experience. So if you're going to take him that early, you're saying, hey, we know he's a project. We're going to give him time. We can't just quickly judge him. And he had the injuries his rookie year. Last year, obviously, was up and down, but I'm just surprised that they go with Daniel Jones here. And this means to me they must see something on the practice field or something where his teammates don't respond to Richardson to make this decision. And again, Richardson might be awful, may never amount to anything, but
You got
why
to
make
find
that
out.
investment? Yeah, why
Yeah.
make that investment if you're not going to even figure it out? Where people who have watched Daniel Jones know that, yeah, it's pretty rough with him. He makes a lot of bad decisions. We know he can run, probably better for the wide receivers. You know, he can get the ball out at short passes. I mean, look at
Mhm.
Wan'Dale Robinson. What do you have, like 100 receptions last year?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's better for the wide receivers right now. I think you feel better about Tyler Warren if you were drafting him, but definitely a little bit of a surprising decision because we started to see people also take Anthony Richardson as a third quarterback in drafts.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
again, if you were just trying to read what was going on, it looked like, okay, they're probably going to go Richardson here. Because again, it's not like Daniel Jones went out there and said, wow, he just looks so much better than Richardson here in the preseason. It was pretty close, and I figured if it was going to be close that they would say, okay, we'll go with Richardson. But yeah, that's really bad for
Yeah.
Richardson.
It's a tough run out. And I think that's where, we are obviously looking at it from a fantasy football angle, but for me, Anthony Richardson, the draft capital, Adam, that they put into him and the expectations were because you know what he was in college. The expectations were that Anthony Richardson was always going to be a project. How they handled Richardson last season, I remember us breaking it down. It was in my opinion, it was bad. The way that they benched him and said, "You know what? We have to figure things out and make it better." So, I understand that if they believe that Daniel Jones is going to be a stabilizing presence, that Daniel Jones is going to help them win games, that's probably what they're looking at here. But I think two things can be true at one time, that maybe they believe Daniel Jones is going to win them games. But on the other side, I feel like it's a failure with Anthony Richardson from the organization, from where they took him in a draft, from not giving him really the opportunity here, Adam. I just think that it's a situation where again, he could be really bad, like you said, but it's you have to figure it out, right? You have to look at it. But again, maybe this Colts team believes that with the team that they have right now that they can win. And I guess that's what they're looking at with Daniel Jones from a fantasy perspective, Adam. This does. I mean, if we're talking about it, we've talked about Anthony Richardson's completion percentage over the past few years that we've seen him. Does this make Josh Downs, everyone else, Michael Pittman Jr. Rise a little bit in your rankings because of this news?
Slightly. I mean, look, you feel better about it. Josh Downs, we still have to see what the extent of that hamstring injury is. So that's why you're a little bit pausing on taking Downs
Mhm.
right now, or you want to get him at a good value. Hamstring injuries are tricky. AD Mitchell's had a really good camp.
Yes.
So that's someone to keep an eye on. Also, let's keep in mind there's a chance Daniel Jones loses his job. He's
That's
the
what I'm
starter to
saying. I,
begin the
I
year,
can't imagine that
but
we're talking about Daniel Jones being the guy. You know what I mean? Like we joked about, oh, who could be the next Sam Darnold because of the way of his career and how it's been going. It's a guy that changes teams, hasn't really shown much, and then all of a sudden breaks out. But that is a huge if for Daniel Jones. Maybe you think we see Anthony Richardson? I don't know what's going on with this organization. They obviously believe that they can win now, and they believe that it's with Daniel Jones, but I don't know if
and
everyone believes
clearly
that.
Jones knew he had a chance to start there, which is why he went there.
1 year deal, right? I
hmm
think it was
I
just a
think it's
1 year
14
deal.
mil, right?
Wow.
Yeah, I think it was, if I
We'll see
remember
what
correctly.
happens. We'll see what happens. Daniel Jones, the starting quarterback, week 1 for the Indianapolis Colts. We'll continue breaking that down and what it means for fantasy football. That means we're going to the water cooler. We're taking your phone calls as well, answering your questions. We're heading to the water cooler next. Welcome into the Fantasy Life Water Cooler. This is where we go through all the news that you might have missed over the past 24, 48 hours, break it down for you, and let you know what it means for fantasy football because we all know you guys are getting ready for those fantasy drafts coming up in just either today, tomorrow, in the next couple of weeks. And we are here to make sure you dominate because we are here to win championships all the way around. And you can do that too by going to fantasylife.com. As always, all of our tools, our rankings, our projections that we talk about, they're over there at fantasylife.com. Use that code SXM20. SXM20 gets you 20% off either tier 1 or tier 2 Fantasy Life Plus subscriptions. And it is a great way to not only dominate your draft, Adam, but then also dominate in season because we've got great tools for you, like the mock draft simulator. We also have the in season tools, the waiver wires, everything that you need to know. Our weekly rankings getting updated during that time. So again, go over there, fantasylife.com. We've got a lot to talk about, Adam. I think we need to, in case people weren't here maybe 10 minutes ago, let's break down the Colts one more time here and then continue to do it throughout the rest of the week. But the Colts did name Daniel Jones as their starting quarterback over Anthony Richardson. So it looks like they are opting for Daniel Jones, again, being the week 1 starter here. They signed Jones back in March. It was the 1-year, $14 million contract after he played for the New York Giants. Richardson's injuries, his inconsistencies obviously was something that they were talking about and looking at in this quarterback competition. So now, again, when we look at Jones, he was never someone with the potential to be, our, what do you think, Adam, second quarterback? You were drafting him as a third quarterback in super flex formats. But where does this move? I want to say everyone. And I want to especially right now talk to start about Tyler Warren and our expectations for him and where he's going in drafts. So starting with Tyler Warren all the way down, what does this do with Daniel Jones here?
Yeah, look, it helps the skill position players because Anthony Richardson's accuracy has been a major problem, right? Under 50% completion percentage last year. So you were a little concerned. Tyler Warren, we've seen play almost every team, every snap with the first team in the preseason looks good. We know the pedigree coming out. So you feel good about him. I think actually, too, believe it or not, with Jonathan Taylor, maybe he catches
Yes.
more passes now out of the backfield. I mean, Jones is also a quarterback that is a threat to run, so he has that ability, but I don't think he'll take as many touchdowns away at the goal line. With Anthony Richardson, you were a little concerned about that, and also Richardson checking down. I think you'll see that more from Daniel Jones, who is someone who will get rid of the football with those short dump offs. So it does help, I think, Jonathan Taylor in the passing game as well. And yeah, you feel better about a Michael Pittman, a Josh Downs if he's healthy, for sure. It gives you a little bit more comfort taking them. Whereas with Richardson, you were like, oh, am I going to have to sit through these games where they get 8 targets and catch 2 because they were just way off on the target? So yeah, it does bode well. And you feel better about taking some of those skill position players. I don't think you're moving him up significantly. It's not like,
No.
oh, okay, now we're going to bump him up several rounds. I don't think it's to that level, but you certainly feel better. But you also have to understand that Daniel Jones could lose this job at any time as well. We probably are going to see Richardson start some games this year.
I yeah, I don't know. I think he'd have to get hurt to lose this job. You think that they would go back
Have
to
you watched Daniel Jones
I
play? Do
know.
you
I
think he
know.
cannot lose this job?
He could get hurt for sure. I don't you don't think that they stick to their guns and say, "You know what? We just made this decision. We're just it feels like they're done with the Anthony Richardson experiment. And that's what it feels like they treated this like isn't it, let's figure it out, but they really didn't. In my opinion, they did not give him a chance really to figure it all out. We haven't seen him play that many games, and I understand the other side of it where listen, the completion, what is it, a 48.7% completion percentage? I mean, it's been bad, but you're right. Daniel Jones could lose this job. I think it'd be more from injuries than them going back.
Well, looking
Unless
at
you
their
think that they're going
schedule,
to learn.
so
Like,
they open up at home against Miami. They probably could win that game. Miami's a little bit of a situation that's not ideal. They host Denver. I mean, Denver's a better team than them, but they are home. Then they're at Tennessee, at the Rams. So, say they start 1-3 or 0-4. You don't see them making a move,
I don't know.
depending, I guess, on how Jones plays. But
I mean,
I,
if this is their they brought Daniel Jones in for 1 year, 14. If doesn't this feel like a sign that they're just done with Anthony Richardson?
Well, no, I agree with you in terms of the signs and the optics that they
Mhm.
have provided here. When I saw that in the offseason, I said, what are they doing? And again, Daniel Jones probably took this 1 year, $14 million deal because he said, hey, I have a chance to start here. Or maybe that's
Absolutely.
what they portrayed to him when they had the discussions. So I thought for most of the offseason, I was like, yeah, it's probably going to be Jones. And I didn't understand what they were doing. But then as time went along, and it's not like Jones went out there in the preseason and seized command of the job and said, hey, I'm playing great. This is my job. It wasn't like that at all. So
Yeah.
you figure if it was going to be that close and Richardson really didn't do anything to lose it, okay, fine. They'll go with Richardson. But yeah, I don't know. I honestly, it's tough to read the Colts, but I
I
do
know. I
think
don't.
Richards is going to start this year at some point. I don't see Jones starting the whole year.
I will say too, the Colts, I mean, the Colts and Adam Schefter tweeted this out too, but the Colts have made it public knowledge that Anthony Richardson did not need to win this quarterback battle to have a future in Indianapolis. I don't know how true that is, Adam, because they're going to have to figure it out. They have to make a decision on his 5th year team option. And I know that's, not right now, but that's for the 2027 season. So they're going to have to make a decision. So, could Daniel Jones play so poorly that yes, because I do believe, I don't know, Adam, when we look at this offense as well, like this is not a bad team. That's the other part where they probably look at all these pieces that they have, especially the investment that they've made over the offseason in Tyler Warren. You look at Jonathan Taylor, and we're still talking about what it was the league's 14th best offense in total points scored during the last 2 seasons, PFF's reigning 12th ranked offensive line. There are pieces here for this team to win. And I think that the Indianapolis Colts are just trying to show that they have the pieces to win. They need the quarterback to be able to help them do it, though. So, going back to Jonathan Taylor, I agree with you there. And I know people sometimes are scared off because of the injuries too, Adam. When you look at him, like he had the high ankle sprain in week 4. He started the year on IR in 2023 with the back and maybe the contract situation. He had ankle sprains in week 4, had the high ankle sprain in 2022. So there's a lot there, but it's still a solid team. I love, Tyler Warren. Tyler Warren's one where I made a video a couple days ago and posted it, but just Tyler Warren at his price, I've been loving walking away with him. I think Tyler Warren, and we've talked about the same thing with Colston Loveland, but Tyler Warren to me going pick 122 on ESPN, 117 on CBS. He usually goes around 99 on Underdog. He's been one where I've been very comfortable. If I miss out on the big three that we always talk about, Trey McBride, Brock Bowers, George Kittle, Tyler Warren just waiting on the tight end position is one that I've liked. And now with Daniel Jones in there, you hope for better, a better passer. It makes it even better for him.
Yeah, I think people were taking him and trusting him as a tight end one regardless. But yes, this just
Yeah,
gives you a little more confidence. Again, though, let's not act like Daniel Jones is great. He was not
he's not.
impressive in the preseason. But so Zach Kiefer, who covers the Colts for The Athletic, he had something where he said, when I talked to Daniel Jones early in camp, he said Shane Steichen told both of them the job would go to who the coaches trust. So clearly, they don't trust Anthony Richardson,
No,
which,
that's clear.
again, you could understand watching him play. But if, as an organization, you're going to spend the 4th overall pick on this quarterback who you knew coming out of college did not have a lot of experience, you can't just yank him in and out. How are you going
Exactly.
to figure out if he's the guy? And maybe he's awful. Maybe what we've seen continues and that's who he is. But why would you invest such an early pick when you knew that this was going to be a project and it was going to take some time? That's just what doesn't make sense. If you're going to make that decision, you're going to have to give him some time. Instead, the offseason, you bring in Daniel Jones, where that already raised eyebrows. Like, wait, $14
Yeah.
million, Daniel Jones? There's a chance he could take over as the starting quarterback. That's exactly what has happened here.
And here's the thing. We're on the same page with that because Anthony Richardson, if you invest such high draft capital in a quarterback, you just have to play it out. And like you said, he could be awful. And people might be yelling at us in their cars or wherever right now saying, we've already seen it. He is awful. But we don't have as big of a sample size as I think, a quarterback like anyone, but Anthony Richardson deserves to have for, like you said, last season he was benched. It just hasn't been good. So the idea too that people saying, "Oh, this is good for Anthony Richardson because he's going to learn." I also don't agree with that, Adam. I don't think that Anthony Richardson is the kind of quarterback that you bench him and you say, "All right, well now you can learn and again learn from Daniel Jones." I just think he needs to be out there, but we'll see. He has a 50.6 career completion percentage compared to Daniel Jones. He has a mark of 61.4%, 47.7 completion percentage last year. Lowest mark in NFL and the third lowest mark of any quarterback in the last 20 years for Anthony Richardson last year. So it's been bad, but
So
There
here's
we
the
go.
thing is that when it comes to the pass catchers, where it makes a difference is the coaching staff is going to be more confident in calling pass plays with Daniel Jones at quarterback. Whether you agree with that or not, that's the case, right? With Richardson, they had to worry about the accuracy, the turnovers, so they were going to be more conservative where they could obviously let Richardson run too. Now, Jones is mobile and can move, but they're going to be calling more pass plays. And if
Yes.
that happens, that means more volume for the receivers. Now, the accuracy is not great for Daniel Jones too, but he does have more experience and he has shown the ability to get the ball to his wide receivers and tight ends. So that's where you feel better. And again, Jonathan Taylor too probably
Mhm.
loses less goal line carries. Now again, Jones can run, but you're going to call way more run plays at the goal line with Anthony Richardson at quarterback compared to Jones.
Absolutely.
And also Taylor, will also get a boost in the passing game. So yeah, from a fantasy perspective, we've talked about it all season. We said, hey, if it's Daniel Jones, it's going to be better. But we're just giving the viewpoint from an organization perspective based on what you did in the draft. And yeah, it's just crazy that
It's crazy.
they haven't given him much of an opportunity.
And for an example of like, comparing, because completion percentage probably isn't the only number that they evaluated when they were looking at both these quarterbacks, right? For example, like one knock on Jones that we can say, and we'll see it this season probably, he rarely takes those deep shots. Anthony Richardson, we know, was kind of comfortable. The intended air yards per pass attempt for Daniel Jones is one that just sits at 7.3 yards for his career. Anthony Richardson, other side of that, he averages 11.1 intended air yards per pass attempt. So he is way more likely to produce an explosive play when we're talking about Anthony Richardson. But it's those routine throws, Adam. It's the easy ones that you look down and you're just like, what the heck is going on? Why can't we have these routine plays? And that has absolutely hindered him over the last couple of seasons. And maybe that's when you look at it, what, Daniel Jones brought to the table, that they said, you know what, we just need these routine plays. We have a team that we believe can win in this division as well. We can talk about the division, but that's the other part that I look at with Anthony Richardson compared to Daniel Jones, and you'll probably see a lot more of that this season. So we'll continue breaking that down. JT, by the way, how much JT do you have? Because I have taken him one time. Again, it depends on where you're drafting, but Jonathan Taylor, like we said, the goal line stuff, he is not going to be vultured as much as if it were Anthony Richardson in there. So that's good signs for him. How much do you have of him?
Not a
Not a
lot.
lot.
Again, I think
Yeah,
it's basically where I'm picking, but I'm fine with them. I mean, he really had a great stretch to close last year. I think
he
people
did.
forget. I think if you asked most people his numbers from last year, they would be way off. He had 1,431 rushing yards in 14 games, 11 rushing touchdowns. Now, again, not a lot of receptions. So I think at full point PPR, that's where people are not as enamored. He had 18 receptions in 14 games on 31 targets. And, outside of his first 2 years when he had 36 and 40 receptions, we
Mhm.
haven't seen him involved much in the passing game. So I think that's part of why people are just like, yeah, I don't know. And also the injuries, he's always missed some times. But that stretch last year to close the year, look at the last 4 games: 107 rushing yards, 218 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns, 125 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns, and 177 yards with a touchdown. And the last 3 games, 34 carries, 32, 29. So he was a workhorse down
Yep.
the stretch. So yeah, I mean, he just hasn't found my way on my teams. I guess a lot of it is the build and where I'm picking. Uh, but yeah, I think you should be open to him late second, early third.
Yeah, I agree with that. He goes in a range. I'm trying to see here. So Jonathan Taylor wow, pick 19 on ESPN, pick 20 on Sleeper. Yahoo is 17, 17 on CBS. So he's pretty close across the board. Underdog 21. So he goes in that range of, like we said, on that turn. Sometimes we don't necessarily love the receivers there, depending on where you're picking from. But maybe that's the guy that you look at and say, all right, I'm comfortable taking a running back here in this range instead. Let's go out to, that was a lot of, we try to get to as much news here as possible, and we'll make sure to continue to update. But that is big news coming out for the Indianapolis Colts. Again, Daniel Jones named the starting quarterback for week one. Before we talk to the great Paul Charchian with Guillotine Leagues, let's go out to the phone lines, Adam. Let's make sure we're getting everyone's questions answered that we can here. Let's go out to Mike in Florida. Mike, what do you got for us?
Hey, good morning. Hey, so I'm on the clock at the 1-2 turn. It's a slow draft league, just because of everybody's schedules. 8 running backs went in the first round, and ironically, you were just talking about Jonathan Taylor. He went in with the pick just before mine. I don't know if that guy heard the news or not, but I'm looking at 1 running back and 1 receiver. The 3 top running backs available are Achane, and it's a standard redraft league, 1 PPR. I'm sorry.
Okay.
No super flex or anything like that. DeVonta, Achane, Josh Jacobs, Chase Brown, Malik Neighbors, St. Brown, and Brian Thomas Jr. Now, I'm leaning Chase Brown for the running back just because I know he won't come back to me, and I've listened to you guys' shows, yours specifically, and if you don't, you got to know your league. And I know all my guys in my league are all kind of old school running back. And if I don't get a top tier running back now, I probably won't.
And Mike, what platform are you drafting on? ESPN, Sleeper, Yahoo?
It's Yahoo, quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 receivers, tight end, flex, defense, and kicker. 1 point PPR, and
Great.
all touchdowns are 6.
Okay, great. So the question here on the 1-2 turn is draft strategy, Adam, and it sounds like Mike knows his league mates. He knows that running backs are going early and often, and guys will probably not come back to him. There were good receivers in this range too, but would you take? It sounds like he liked Chase Brown the most between Achane and Jacobs. Still had Neighbors, St. Brown available as well. What would you do here?
Wait, so what pick do you have?
I believe it's.
I'm 12 and 13 in a 12-team league.
Oh, so you're taking 2 here then, right? Yeah. So
yeah.
I mean, look,
and I also like Brian Thomas Jr. because I think he's better than Neighbors, just because I think the Jags will score more. But I'm open.
Yeah, I probably would take. Look, I probably myself would go 2 receivers, but he wants to get that running back. So if you're going to get the running back, you want Chase Brown, I have no problem with it. I know it seems high, but I've been seeing him go early second round. And like he said, he's not going to make it back. Achane, you're probably a little worried right now because of this calf issue. So I understand that. So if you want to take one of the running backs, it's Brown. And yeah, those receivers are all close. I personally would go Neighbors, but I also have Thomas right next to him. If you want to go Thomas, I have no problem with that.
You have them both higher than St. Brown?
Yes.
Yeah, I agree there too. But if you, and this is, appreciate you calling in, Mike. I would, Chase Brown, I see it. The Achane news, yeah, appreciate you so much. But the Achane news, Josh Jacobs goes usually a little bit later. And we talked yesterday about Chase Brown potentially being a league winner, Adam. So if you truly believe that and you want to get your guys, and you know that running backs, when you get back to your pick on the end, this is where I had the same, we talked about this last week with me, and I was picking at 14. And I said, you know what? I didn't want to take a gamble on quarterback because I thought I knew the league well enough to look and say, I need to take my quarterback now. This is the exact situation with Mike. So I really like that, especially with Chase Brown. Let's get to one more here. Let's go out to Marcus in Toronto. Marcus, what do you got for us?
Hey, how's it going today, my friends?
Good. Marcus, how you doing?
Great, thanks. I got an offer that I'm debating. I'm not really feeling. Someone's offering me DeVonta Smith for Bucky Irving. This is in a super flex league. Start 3 receivers, 2 running backs, and 2 flex. I was looking at countering Bucky Irving and trying to get St. Brown from him. I have 4 running backs that are pretty solid: Derrick Henry, Chase Brown, Bucky Irving, and James Cook. Plus, I have Tyrone Tracy on the bench, so I can't afford to get rid of a running back to upgrade my receivers. So I was just wondering what you guys thought of his offer, and am I looking for too much, maybe trying to get St. Brown from him?
I never think you're, I always counter, Adam. Let's see how far we can take this, because you never, what's the worst that they're going to do, Adam? They're just going to say no, and they'll probably counter right back. So on paper, Bucky Irving for DeVonta Smith, you would say no to that, right? You don't think that's enough?
Yeah, I think Smith's a good receiver who's been consistent, and last year got hurt by the lack of pass attempts by the Eagles. And he was, I think, top 16 in points per game in PPR formats, believe it or not. But no, you can't. Bucky Irving has way more value. He goes several rounds higher. The Bucky Irving for St. Brown is a more fair offer. St. Brown just gives you consistency in a top offense. And look, even though you have depth right now, I always say this, you have depth at running back right now. That could easily change tomorrow, where 2 of those guys get hurt. So you can never have enough depth at running back, but it also puts you in a position where you have the power. There's no need to make an
Yeah.
immediate trade. Let someone that's desperate come to you. Because if people are smart, because what I do, I don't really trade a lot, but if I'm in leagues where there are trades, you always look at the depth chart and go, okay, everyone needs a running back. Who has running back depth? Oh, wow, look at this guy's team. And then they're going to come to you and make offers. So there's no need to panic and make a move immediately. Yes, it makes sense. You want to upgrade your receiver depth, and you have some running backs that you would be fine if you traded one away, but there's no need to make a rash move immediately.
And never think that you're asking for too much in return here, Marcus, because you just, again, the worst thing that they're going to say is no, and they might roast you a little bit. That's fine, but try and ask if teams really, like Adam said, get desperate. You can ask for whatever you want, and if they're desperate enough and they need a running back like Bucky Irving, they'll be willing to give you a lot, and I think a lot better than DeVonta Smith for sure. So appreciate you, Marcus, calling in. Appreciate Mike calling in as well. The phone number again is 888-963-2682, or you can press that new call-in button on the Sirius XM app, where check in our notifications over there on X, on Twitter as well, at Valenzuela17, at Adam Ronis, if you want to send us stuff over there too. But we get to talk to the great Paul Charchian at Guillotine Leagues. If you haven't joined one, make sure you go to guillotineleagues.com. But the first Guillotine League waiver claim period is coming tomorrow. We have to prep you guys because there are some guys available who Paul is actually recommending that you could go and pick up. We're going to give you those names with Paul coming up next. Dominate your fantasy football leagues. Dominate your guillotine leagues. That is what we're looking for right now with the one and only Paul Charchian joining us right here. Paul, welcome in. We've missed you. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Some fun stuff happening at guillotineleagues.com, including our first preseason waiver run. We're going to have another one in a week, but this is the first one. So anybody who's got a completed draft, you could be looking at picking up the players that should have been drafted when you did draft, but are still now currently available. Like, the in-season waiver claims are way more fun because, some whole team's roster just got chopped and, you're going to be bidding on Mike Evans and Devin Achane and stuff like that. But this one, we can still identify some reasonably good players, or at least guys we can make a case for that are still available on waivers right now. And you don't have to throw around a lot of money. You can, throw around $3 out of your 1,000 for the year. Right.
Exactly. Here. Exactly. And that's what we're looking for because, Paul, the injuries never stop. Just because you drafted your Guillotine League team, unfortunately, we got news.
Correct.
The biggest, the one today was Jaylen McMillan. He's got a neck injury that doesn't look like he's going to be ready for week 1. And, they probably aren't going to mess around with neck injuries as well. So you have to be careful. So if you've drafted some of these guys, here are guys that you said, Paul, 235 plus ADP, at least 50% ownership as well. So let's start with Quinshon Boutte and why you like him there. Again, if you drafted Jaylen McMillan, maybe this is a guy you turn to for the Patriots. What do you like about him with this?
I like a lot about Quinshon Boutte. This is my favorite overall deep sleeper. You know how we all have sleepers, but they come in different categories. Like I consider David Njoku a really good sleeper. But Boutte is my favorite. Now, by the way, it's Boutte, not Boutte. Which is a big difference if you're actively drafting with Sir Mix-a-Lot. So you need to know the difference.
You're so funny.
We know. Let's look at the New England receivers. We know Pop Douglas is going to play out of the slot. That's a done deal. We know Stephon Diggs is going to play one side of the field. But who's going to be on the other side? Drafters seem to think it's rookie Kyle Williams. But it's not going to be Kyle Williams, at least at the start of the season. Maybe long-term it will be. It's going to be Quinshon Boutte. So let's talk about it. First, he's getting most of the first-team reps in practice. In Saturday's preseason game, he played 12 of the Patriots' 14 first-team snaps. Williams played on the second team. That's not going to change between now and the start of the regular season. Boutte, by the way, league's lowest drafted ADP for any starting wide receiver in the league. Nobody going lower than he is. Boutte's got a fascinating history. And you guys probably don't know his history. I looked it up. Boutte was a high school 5-star recruit from Louisiana. So highly recruited, he basically could have played at any program in America, decided to stay home and play at LSU. And it started really well. as a freshman, Booty set it the SEC all-time single-game receiving record with 308 yards in a game.
Wow.
Then a good sophomore year, and then the wheels came off. Junior year has problems with drops, injuries. He gets called out for a lack of effort and focus. He has off-field issues, including an arrest. And then the death blow. He bet on games, including his own team, LSU games. And that was a college career right there for Quinshon Booty. So what happens? Goes into the draft because he can't go back to college. He gets drafted 2 seasons ago as the youngest receiver in the draft. He was age 20 at that time. And Booty, as being so young and so raw, he did nothing his first year as a rookie. As a sophomore last year, though, things started to come together for Booty. Week 8 forward, he averaged a team-high 6 targets per game last year. And then get this, week 16 of last season, 5 catches, 85 yards, and a touchdown. Week 18 for Booty, 7 catches, 100 yards, and a touchdown. If you think this Patriots offense is going to be better and you think Drake May is going to take a sophomore leap in ability, why not get his starting wide receiver for $1 on the waiver wire, Quinshon Booty? What do you think? Did I make a case?
You did make a case. It's Booty, not Booty, like I was saying. And you did make a case because, Paul, like I said, we're going to have injuries these next few weeks. So the first waiver run, if you're drafting on guillotineleagues.com, which you all should be because it is so fun, it starts tomorrow, right? So this is why you have to look at some of these guys. You probably already have a player on your team that might be injured. So you have to look around and say, who has gone undrafted that I could, like you said, Paul, spend $1? And I think that's a really good name.
Yeah. Or even if your whole roster's healthy, that last guy that you took round 13 or round 14, he might just suck and not give you the upside that Quinshon Booty has. And remember, we're really drafting for September right now. If you put somebody on your roster from pick 13 or pick 14 in your draft, that doesn't reasonably have a way to pay off until October, November, December. Let him go now. You'll have chances to go get him later. Remember, in guillotine, it's never your last chance to go get a player. You're always going to have more shots at a guy.
Another player that is available that is a deep sleeper, Juwan Johnson. What do you like about him?
Yeah, availability here, 26%. Last March, Johnson signed this 3-year, $30 million contract, which surprised me that they gave him that much of a commitment and that much money. Remember, for New Orleans, Taysom Hill tore his ACL in December. It's probably a career for him, not going to be a factor this year. And Johnson surged throughout the season with Hill out, career highs in targets, catches, and receiving yards last year. And I think that production figures to climb because the list of viable pass catchers in New Orleans gets real thin, real fast after Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed. So I think he's going to be an important part of the Saints offense. Johnson will be. And young quarterbacks love to dump off to their tight ends. They go to their hot read a lot when the pocket breaks down. I could see Tyler Shuck or Spencer Rattler peppering him with some targets. And the last thing I'll mention about Juwan Johnson is his new head coach, Kellen Moore, last year in Philly as their offensive coordinator. Dallas Goedert was tight end 11 in PPR points per game. Year before that, he was in LA as their offensive coordinator. Gerald Everett, tight end 22. Not great, but he is Gerald Everett. And the year before that, as the Cowboys offensive coordinator, Dalton Schultz broke out as tight end 7 in PPR points. So we have a history of Kellen Moore using the tight end as well. Juwan Johnson available in about a quarter of leagues. You could potentially go get him.
And then Devin Neal, let's stay over there. What are your expectations? Maybe not expectations, but why is he on this list? Again, we're talking with Paul Charchi and we're going through players that are available right now for you to go and get before the Guillotine League, during the Guillotine League preseason waiver claim, which is coming up tomorrow. So make sure you're looking at that, look through all your players. But what do you like about Devin Neal? Why is he on this list?
Devin Neal's on this list. He's 38% available. And really, it's a bit of a shot in the dark. If something were to happen to Alvin Kamara early in the season, I wouldn't hold Devin Neal waiting for injury. But between now and the start of the season, he's the guy I'd want to have if anything happened to Kamara. Now, Kamara is, 30 years old, 2,200 career touches, and mostly avoided injury throughout his career, despite a lot of use. And Devin Neal, stylistically, is the closest thing to Alvin Kamara they've got. Now, Neal doesn't have Kamara's burst and speed. Nobody does, really. But he can do the other stuff that Kamara does. Super shifty, amazing footwork, runs with vision, and he's the only Saints runner who can really catch Devin Neal. And so if they want somebody to walk into that pass-catching role that, Alvin Kamara's got locked down, it would be Devin Neal would be the guy. So if you've got somebody in your roster that doesn't really give you the upside, I could see holding Devin Neal through week 1. And, if anything, we don't root for injury, but if anything were to happen to Alvin Kamara early in the season or between now and the start of the season, you'd have the guy that I want to have in Devin Neal, not Kendre Miller or Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Joe Flacco officially named the starter, and he's on your list. Does this have to do with maybe some favorable matchups early on?
Why does? Well, yes, it does, as a matter of fact. Thank you for bringing that up, Adam. That's very insightful of you. Available in half of Guillotine leagues. The ultimate draft day slough target at quarterback. If you're like, I'm not taking a quarterback until round 13, you could go with Joe Flacco or just now pick him up off of the waiver wire now that he's been named the starter. And you figure he's going to hold that for quite a while. Even if Shedeur Sanders eventually takes the job, I think Flacco's going to hold it for quite some time. You love that Flacco's got receiving talent around him. Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman, and my personal favorite, David Njoku, the aforementioned David Njoku. And last time he played with Kevin Stefanski, of course, and I know we reference this all the time, that end of the 2023 season, Flacco went berserk in this offense. He averaged 223 yards per game and 2.5 touchdowns per game, a pace that would have made him quarterback 1 in passing yards and quarterback 1 in passing touchdowns if you were to apply it to a full season. You mentioned the schedule for Flacco, Adam. Comes out of the gate with Cincinnati. They ranked 27th in fantasy points allowed to quarterbacks last year. Then he's got Baltimore. They ranked 22nd in fantasy points allowed to quarterbacks last year, although got better throughout the course of the season and likely playing behind against the Ravens and passing a lot. Then you got Green Bay, Detroit's secondary, and then maybe the Vikings if you're still hanging on to Joe Flacco at that point, but maybe just start him for 2-3 weeks, and why not pick him up for $1 off the waiver wire tomorrow at 3:00 Eastern when the waiver claim processing deadline hits.
3:00 Eastern. Everyone remember that, because again, we're talking with Paul Charchian here, guillotineleagues.com. If you haven't drafted a team, if you haven't gotten involved, you want to, because it is such a fun way to play fantasy football in guillotineleagues.com. Again, preseason waiver wire claims are coming up Wednesday, 3 p.m. Eastern. So I'll have to remember that, Paul. I have to set my alarm. Last guy that we have to talk about, Alec Iomanor, from when we're looking at him, Tennessee. I've seen a lot of things about him, Paul. When we're looking, they say that he appears to be working his way into a starting role. We've talked about the Tennessee Titans before with Cam Ward. Calvin Ridley is one of at least my most drafted receivers. But when you look down the depth chart, he feels like he could be a guy that makes his way onto a good role.
Yeah, after Calvin Ridley, is anybody really locked into a starting role in that offense? And now I say it, Iomanor. Maybe I'm saying it wrong,
Iomanor, I think it is.
Iomanor, okay, we'll go with Iomanor.
Maybe we'll see. We'll see. Listen, I pronounced booty wrong, so it could be one.
Yeah, who's to say, right? Yeah, we're learning. we're all learning here. They also have Van Jefferson here. The only thing Van Jefferson brings to the table is consistently losing his starting job. That's all he does is lose his starting job. We've got opportunities here. Alec Iomanor or Iomanor.
We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out, Paul.
In both preseason games, he's gotten snaps with the first team offense and Cam Ward, and he's working well ahead of rookie teammate Chimere Dike. Interestingly, Iomanor took 0 snaps from the slot in the first preseason game, but then in the second preseason game, almost half his snaps are from the slot. I feel like they're trying to find ways to get Iomanor on the field. And I think Brian Callahan's like, all right, this guy's good. What can I do to get him on the field? So the bio on him, not overly big player, but he's strong and physical. He wins contested catches. Not a menace after the catch, but good enough speed where he can break away. He's 4.44 40. Good ball skills, and he's been one of the big talkers of Titans camp. So not generally a big fan of rookies, but this is a guy with 65% availability. Alec Iomanner, perhaps pronounced Iomanner.
Potentially. Well, we're going to figure it out because we like to say their names correctly here. But I do like it because, like you said, there is room for him to earn immediate playing time. And that's what we like to look for, especially if he's on waivers right now. You don't have to spend that much on him. We like the potential there. So, Paul, thank you so much for joining us here. And we get to see you next week. Again, guillotineleagues.com. And it's 3 p.m. Eastern tomorrow for the first waiver run. How excited.
Yep.
We're ready to go.
Yeah, first waiver. Don't spend a lot of money. Your $1,000 will go a lot farther later. But here for this one, $1, $3, $5 on somebody that can help your team, go for it.
If anyone's in my league, Paul just said $500 for Juwan Johnson. Make sure you lock that down. 500. I'm going to bet 489. So you have to go higher than that to get him. Paul, we appreciate you. We'll talk to you next week.
Bye-bye.
All right, we're talking through the best stacks to look for when we're playing fantasy football and looking throughout not only best ball, but some of our redraft leagues as well. We're going to go through that coming up next. We're ranking every team stack to target in fantasy football, presented here by GoPuff. I want to just start at the very beginning and say, hey, for stacks, for me, Adam, when I look at stacks, and we've gotten questions like this before, if it happens, if it just so happens that I take a quarterback and then maybe the wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, maybe a late round tight end from the same team happens to be there, I definitely welcome it. It's not something that I go out of my way for to look at stacks when I'm drafting specifically. But if it happens, I'm very much open to it, especially if it's a team or a quarterback that I think is going to be able to step up. We've talked about it with Drake May, JJ McCarthy. If I'm able to do it, I'm very okay with it. But how do you look at stacks and when you're targeting them, if you're targeting them in fantasy?
In your home league, if it's just an isolated league, just a 12-team league, I don't think you have to do it. You definitely do not want to force it. It's becoming very popular because it is something you want to do in best ball because you're playing against thousands of teams. So you need to find a way to separate yourself. And especially in weeks 15, 16, 17, those playoff weeks, if you have that stack that goes off, it can push you up the leaderboard. Mm-hmm. In high stakes leagues, it's a similar situation where you're competing against hundreds or thousands of teams. So you want to try and separate yourself. And of course, when that quarterback throws a touchdown to the receiver, you get double points. And if somehow they have a 2 or 3 touchdown game to the receiver, it can put you in front and win a championship. And last year, I got beat in a championship. Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans, my opponent had. That was brutal. So you understand why people do it, but really you don't want to force it. Like the Bengals stack this year is so popular, but it is very pricey.
Yes.
Yeah, you take Jamar Chase 1 and almost everybody has taken Joe Burrow on the 2-3 turn. And sometimes they're doing Chase and then Chase Brown, Burrow, or Chase, T. Higgins, and Burrow. So that's going to be very popular. So even if it does hit and go off, they have big weeks, there's going to be a lot of people that have that. So you're really not separating yourself. And also, there is the possibility, as good as that Bengals offense is, they have a bad week. Probably not, but the probability is there. So it is sometimes more, if you are looking for those stacks, you can get ones that are a lot cheaper and not as popular.
And the goal of this is to point you in the direction of stacks that can exceed value. These guys could potentially smash their ADPs because, yes, of course, we could talk to you about the Burrow Chase Higgins stack, but that's expensive. And we want to look for maybe some other ones that you can potentially go and get at a cheaper price. This is an article also written by the great Peter Overzet. So make sure you check it out at fantasylife.com because he did point out one at number 5 that I want to get to. Patrick Mahomes, Xavier Worthy, Travis Kelce is one you can look at. We've talked about this team before. He left out Rashee Rice because of, whatever this suspension is going to look like. Again, we don't know, but Pete really thinks that Xavier Worthy is just a guy that you should smash at ADP because there's a chance that he does just go above and beyond it. And similar with the tight end turn, we've been talking about Travis Kelce where he's just, for me, sometimes too expensive, especially if you're drafting on sites like ESPN. He's just going 2 or 3 rounds way too early, and it might be just because of his name. But there are cases where you could say, all right, well, I've got Patrick Mahomes. If Travis Kelce goes late, maybe that's someone you like. But it's a stack that's cheaper than, Burrow, Higgins, Chase Brown, all that you just said.
Yeah, it comes down to your belief in Patrick Mahomes in this Chiefs offense. They obviously have been disappointing from a fantasy perspective the last 2 years. But also, Mahomes just has not had the receivers or a lot of them healthy. And if you believe like this is the year, and he's also talked about working on the deep ball more, they might not be able to be as good defensively. That would help open up the offense. We saw Worthy really come on in the second half last year and emerge. If Hollywood Brown can get back, you have that speed. So, and then Rice, obviously the suspension, we just don't know when that will happen. But either way, I mean, Kelsey, like you said, some sites he is expensive, but there are certain platforms where, he can go 90 or later. And then at that point, it's certainly, if you're looking for the stack, it can fit the build if you already have Mahomes and Worthy.
Coming in at 8 in this article, the Houston Texans. CJ Stroud going around ADP 132.2. Then you have Nico Collins, who's always going to be expensive. He's always going to be a first-round pick. But then one of, Jaylen Noel, he left out Jaden Higgins, which I thought was interesting. But Jaylen Noel is cheaper, 199.3 when we're looking at ADPs. The running back room, complete disaster, Adam. Maybe this is a team that goes out to try and get Brian Robinson Jr. Not that we think that that's going to fix all of their problems, but it's better than what they have right now. Nico Collins is someone that we've, seen written up as someone that can finish as the overall wide receiver 1 potentially if he really runs pure this season. So this is I like this stack. If you also believe that CJ Stroud's going to have, a bounce back season where he's closer to the guy that we saw 2 years ago than last season, I like this call out for sure.
Yeah, Pete mentions Higgins as the omission only because of the price. Like the gap between Higgins and Noel is really large, so that's why. And Stroud, it comes down to, I think he's going to put the ball in the air a lot. I just don't have any faith in this running game. They added weapons to the passing game, so he's going to drop back and pass a lot this year.
No, he's definitely going to do that. And you want to make sure that you are not distracted. We're trying not to distract you. We're giving you all these tips and tricks. Make sure you go and call in GoPuff. Snacks, drinks, and everyday essentials delivered in as fast as 15 minutes. 60% off your first order with code FANTASYLIFE60. That's code FANTASYLIFE60. Appreciate everyone hanging out with us. You've got RotoWire Fantasy Sports Today coming up next. We'll see you same time here tomorrow.